Good morning, dear friends. Before this new day unfolds, I invite you to pause for a moment. Let your shoulders soften, let your thoughts settle, and let your heart open to something deeper than the rush of the world. Imagine what today would look like if mercy guided your steps. Not just the easy mercy you offer when things feel peaceful, but the mercy that stretches toward the people who frustrate you, misunderstand you, or even wound you. Imagine beginning your morning with the strength to forgive before the offense comes, the patience to calm your reactions, and the quiet courage to love when love is the last thing you feel like giving. As you listen to this story, allow yourself to breathe, because what you're about to hear may shift something inside of you in ways you didn't expect. Elena had always believed she was a patient person. She worked as a nurse at a small community clinic in a busy neighborhood, the kind of place where every day brought new challenges. People from all walks of life came through the doors: frustrated parents, wounded teenagers, lonely elders, and the occasional soul who simply needed to talk more than to be treated. She had seen anger and fear and pain in 1,000 forms, and she prided herself on meeting each one with compassion. At least that's what she believed until the morning everything changed. It was a cold November morning, the kind where the sky looked pale and tired, as if the sun hadn't slept well. Elena wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck as she walked toward the clinic, sipping the last warm drops of coffee from her thermos. She had slept poorly the night before, worrying about her younger brother, Matteo. He had been drifting for months, skipping work, arguing with their mother, coming home late with explanations that didn't quite add up. Elena tried to help him, tried to be patient, but the weight of responsibility pressed harder each day. She loved him deeply, but she also feared where his choices might lead. When she entered the clinic that morning, a sense of heaviness lingered in the air. She greeted her coworkers, noticing tired expressions on their faces. The clinic was short-staffed again, the budget tight, the workload overwhelming, and hovering over everything was the tension she didn't want to name: burnout. It had been creeping in for months, settling into the shoulders of everyone on the team. Still, Elena whispered a small prayer under her breath. "Lord, help me give today what I cannot give on my own." The morning had barely begun when a man stormed through the doors, slamming them open so hard the frame rattled. He was shouting before he even reached the counter, accusing the staff of losing his appointment, claiming negligence, calling her co-worker names that made her chest tighten. Elena stepped forward calmly, speaking in the gentle tone she'd learned over years of diffusing tense moments. But nothing reached him. His anger was like a wildfire, quick and consuming, and soon she found herself the target of his rage. Her hands trembled slightly as she guided him to a private room, keeping her voice steady even when his insults cut deep. By the time the situation settled, her heart was thudding in her chest, and she felt the familiar sting behind her eyes. She excused herself, walked into the empty supply closet, and leaned against the cool metal shelf. For the first time in a long while, she wondered if her patience had limits she didn't want to admit. It wasn't just the man's anger that unsettled her. It was what had awakened inside her. She thought of Matteo again, his sharp words when she confronted him, the way he turned his pain into accusation, the bitterness in his voice that felt undeserved, yet deeply personal. She remembered how he had blamed her last week for never understanding him, even though she had done everything she could to support him. The more she replayed those moments, the more something clenched inside her, something tight and tired. By midday, Elena felt drained. The clinic buzzed with noise, phones ringing, patients lined up, co-workers rushing from room to room. As she washed her hands at the sink, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. A weary woman with shadows beneath her eyes and a heart fraying at the edges. She whispered, "Lord, I don't know how to keep giving mercy today." During her short lunch break, she stepped outside into the crisp air. She walked behind the clinic to the small bench that overlooked the alleyway. It wasn't beautiful, but it was quiet. She closed her eyes and tried to pray, but instead of peace, images of Matteo kept surfacing. She felt frustration, hurt, confusion, and beneath all of it, a sense of failure she didn't want to face. That was when her phone buzzed. A message from her mother appeared on the screen. "Matteo didn't come home last night. Haven't heard from him. If you can, please check on him." Elena's heart dropped. She felt the world tilt for a moment. Without swallowing her last bite of food, she stood abruptly and rushed back inside the clinic. She explained the situation to her supervisor, who granted her permission to leave early despite the busy day. Within minutes, she was in her car, starting the engine with shaking hands. As she drove toward Mateo's apartment, she replayed the reflection she had heard that very morning on the radio, one she had almost dismissed in her rush to start the day. It had been about mercy, not the easy mercy offered when everything feels calm, but the mercy Jesus spoke of when he said, "Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, forgive, not because you must, but because you are my disciples." At the time, she had nodded politely, thinking she understood. But now she felt the words digging deeper, unsettling her, challenging her. She found herself asking, what if mercy isn't something we feel, but something we choose? What if love doesn't wait for the other person to deserve it? When she arrived at Mateo's building, she climbed the stairs 2 at a time, her breath quickening with every step. She knocked on his door and waited. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. Anxiety pressed into her ribs. With trembling fingers, she entered the emergency code he had once given her for bad days. When the lock clicked open, her heart clenched. Inside, the apartment was dim and cluttered. Clothes on the floor, open cans on the counter, and silence so thick it made her chest ache. She called his name. Once. Twice. After a long moment, a faint sound came from the bedroom. She rushed inside and found Mateo curled on the floor beside his bed, his arms wrapped around himself, eyes red and swollen. He looked exhausted, defeated, nothing like the confident young man she remembered. When he saw her, he didn't speak. He simply lowered his head as if ashamed of being found. Elena knelt beside him, gently touching his shoulder. "I'm here," she whispered, and for a moment, neither of them moved. They simply breathed in the same room, sharing a kind of brokenness neither had words for. In that stillness, something unexpected filled her heart. Not anger, not frustration, not disappointment, but mercy. Quiet, steady mercy. The kind that didn't deny the hurt but rose above it. The kind that demanded nothing in return. She helped him sit up, her hands steady, her voice soft. Whatever came next, she knew it would change both of them. And it was only the beginning. Elena stayed by Mateo's side for several minutes, letting him gather the strength to speak. When he finally lifted his eyes, she saw the exhaustion in them, the kind born not from lack of sleep, but from carrying a weight alone for too long. His voice was rough when he said, "I didn't want you to see me like this." She could hear the shame beneath the words, the helplessness, the fear of being judged. And she felt her heart soften in a way she could not have forced earlier that morning. She helped him sit on the edge of the bed, and though he tried to straighten up, he looked fragile, worn down. She asked quietly if he was hurt, if he had taken anything, if he needed a doctor. He shook his head with slow movements, each one heavy. "No, just tired of everything," he whispered. She didn't press for details. Instead, she sat beside him, their shoulders touching gently, offering the silent comfort of presence. It was only then she realized how deeply he had been struggling beneath the surface of his impulsive choices. After a few minutes, he broke down. The tears he tried to swallow rose anyway, spilling over, forcing their way out as though they had waited too long for release. Elena wrapped her arms around him, holding him with the tenderness of someone who finally understood that the anger he had shown in the past was not defiance, but defense. For the first time, he allowed himself to lean into her. When he calmed, she guided him to the kitchen, coaxed him to drink water, and warmed a bowl of soup she found in the fridge. He ate slowly, as if unsure he deserved to be cared for. The gesture reminded her of the man earlier at the clinic, the one whose rage had cut into her with cruelty. She wondered how many people in the world carried wounds so deep that their pain spilled out as anger. How many times had she judged without knowing the whole story? How often had she responded from fear instead of compassion? As Mateo ate, he finally began to speak. He told her how he had lost his job months ago and had been too ashamed to admit it. He described how the bills had piled up, how he had avoided their mother's calls, how he had pushed Elena away because he couldn't bear the thought of disappointing the one person who always believed in him. Shame had bound him, whispering lies until he felt trapped with no escape. She listened without interrupting, letting him unravel the knots inside him one word at a time. When he finished, he looked at her with an expression she had rarely seen. Vulnerability, raw and unguarded. "I didn't deserve your kindness today," he murmured. "I've said awful things to you." Elena reached across the table and took his hand, her voice steady. "Love isn't about deserving," she said. "It's about showing up. And I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." As she spoke those words, she felt a quiet power rise inside her. A strength that didn't come from pride or righteousness, but from mercy. A strength she hadn't known she had. She helped him clean up the apartment, throwing away clutter, opening the curtains, letting light into the room that had been dark too long. The simple act of tidying felt symbolic, like clearing out shadows both visible and hidden. Mateo moved slowly but willingly, grateful for her presence. The heaviness between them began to lift, replaced by something fragile but hopeful. Late in the afternoon, she sat with him on the couch as he fell asleep, exhaustion finally claiming him. She watched him rest, his breathing steadier now, and felt a wave of compassion so deep it startled her. She whispered a quiet prayer for him, asking God to heal what she could not see, to reach places she could not touch. For the first time in weeks, her heart felt unclenched. When she finally left his apartment, the sky outside had begun to soften with the warm colors of early evening. She walked slowly toward her car, feeling the chill of the air against her cheeks. Her thoughts lingered on the morning's gospel reflection. Jesus called to love enemies, to show mercy without expecting anything in return. She realized then that mercy didn't always look like a grand act. Sometimes it was simply choosing to respond with gentleness when every emotion pushed you toward resentment. Sometimes it was staying present when someone's pain made them difficult to love. Sometimes it was breaking the cycle of hurt with a single act of compassion. As she drove home, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her coworker, Olivia. "Rough day here after you left, but we're managing. How are you?" Elena hesitated before responding. She didn't know how to sum up everything she had felt. She simply replied, "I'm okay. Today taught me more than I expected." Olivia sent back a heart emoji and a prayer hands emoji. Elena smiled softly. Perhaps everyone had lived a lesson of mercy that day, each in their own way. When she reached her apartment, she lit a small candle on the table, a habit she had picked up to help her wind down after long shifts. She sat on the couch, the silence of her home wrapping around her, and let her body relax. As she watched the flame flicker, she reflected on the man from the clinic again, his anger, his desperation, his inability to express anything except frustration. She wondered what burdens he carried, what news he had received, what losses he grieved, what fears drove him to lash out. She regretted the irritation she had felt toward him, recognizing now that the world was filled with unseen battles. Later that evening, she pulled out her worn journal, the one she kept hidden in a drawer. She flipped to a blank page and began to write. Mercy is hardest when it feels undeserved, but maybe that's when it matters most. As she wrote, she felt clarity settling in her heart. The events of the day had woven a new understanding into her spirit, one deeper than theory, deeper than faith taught from sermons or books. It was the kind of understanding that only lived experience could carve into the soul. She wrote about Mateo's pain, about her own frustration, about how both had blurred their ability to see each other clearly. She wrote about forgiveness, not as dismissal, but as healing. She wrote about how mercy had softened her heart, not only toward him, but toward herself. When she finished, she closed the journal and pressed her palms together in gratitude. Just as she was about to head to bed, her phone buzzed again. It was her mother, relieved after hearing from Mateo. She thanked Elena for checking on him, calling her a blessing. Elena's eyes stung with emotion. She didn't feel like a blessing. She felt like someone simply doing what love required. But perhaps that was enough. As she prepared for sleep, she knew tomorrow would bring new challenges. The clinic would be just as chaotic, and Mateo's struggles wouldn't disappear overnight. But something within her had shifted. Mercy had planted a seed, quiet, humble, steady. And she sensed that if she nurtured it, it would grow into a strength she could carry throughout her life. Before drifting off, she whispered one more prayer, simple and sincere. Lord, help me keep choosing mercy, especially when it's hard. And with that, a gentle peace settled over her, as if heaven itself breathed a blessing into her rest. The next morning began with the faint glow of sunrise filtering into Elena's bedroom, painting soft streaks of gold across the walls. She woke with a calmer mind than she expected, though a quiet ache remained in her chest. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was the weight of having witnessed someone she loved unravel, the heaviness of carrying his vulnerability in her heart through the night. She dressed slowly, brewed a cup of coffee, and took a quiet moment by the window before heading back to the clinic. Driving to work, the world felt gentler than the day before. The streets were unusually calm, the sky clear, and the cold air crisp in a way that made her more aware of her own breath. She found herself whispering a small prayer again, asking for the strength to show patience and mercy, especially when the day began to stretch her thin. She knew from experience that peaceful mornings didn't guarantee peaceful afternoons. When she arrived, the clinic was already alive with movement. Olivia greeted her with relief, as if Elena's presence pulled some of the day's pressure into balance. The waiting room was full, nurses hurried between rooms, and the sound of ringing phones blended with distant conversations. Elena gave Olivia a gentle pat on the shoulder before heading to her station. "We've got this," she said, and even she was surprised by how confident it sounded. The morning went by quickly. Vital checks, medication rounds, bandage changes, the endless rhythm of tending to people's physical needs while trying to keep her own spirit centered. But around midday, the doors burst open and the atmosphere shifted sharply. A father rushed in carrying his daughter, a small girl around 6 years old, limp in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her face pale, her body trembling every few seconds. Panic radiated from him like heat from a fire. Elena acted instantly, instincts sharpened by years in emergency care. She cleared a treatment room while calling for a doctor, guiding the father inside. She helped lay the little girl on the bed, checked her pulse, oxygen, and temperature while speaking softly to reassure both child and parent. The father's voice trembled with desperation as he explained that she had collapsed suddenly after complaining she couldn't breathe. Elena could feel the fear pouring off him, the terror of not knowing whether he would walk out with his daughter or with a grief that would destroy him. As the doctor arrived and began ordering tests, Elena stayed by the girl's side, her hands steady despite the intensity of the moment. She spoke gently to the child, brushing her hair back, whispering words of comfort. Her mind flashed back to Matteo, to how fragile he had looked hours earlier. Pain came in many forms, emotional, physical, invisible, and people often fought for air even when their lungs weren't the problem. While the child received treatment, Elena noticed something about the father that tugged at her heart. His anxiety wasn't only for the present moment. It carried the exhaustion of many sleepless nights, the strain of someone barely holding life together. His clothes were worn, his face unshaven, and the smell of engine oil clung to him. She knew that kind of scent. Her own father had carried it home during years of working late shifts. She wondered how long this man had been carrying burdens alone. When the girl finally stabilized and her breathing eased, the father collapsed into the chair beside her bed, overwhelmed by relief. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "Thank you," over and over, the gratitude spilling from him like water breaking past a dam. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder, offering the steadying presence he needed. "She's safe now," she said softly. "You did everything right bringing her here." For a moment, she saw the weight lift from him, replaced by a fragile hope that shimmered in his eyes. After they moved the girl to a recovery room, Elena stepped outside to catch her breath. The encounter had shaken her, not because it was rare, but because it was a stark reminder of how fragile life was and how quickly everything could change. She leaned against the wall and let the cold air cool her flushed skin. She found herself praying again, this time for the little girl, for the father, for all the people who walked through the clinic's doors carrying hidden storms. Just as she turned to go back inside, she saw someone standing by the entrance. Her heart tightened in recognition. It was the same man from the day before, the one who had shouted at her, the one whose anger had exploded like a struck match. She froze, unsure whether to approach him or retreat. But then he caught her eye, and something in his expression made her stay. The rage that had once twisted his features was gone. Instead, he looked uncertain, almost uncomfortable, like someone standing too close to truth. He walked toward her slowly, hands in his pockets, eyes lowered before meeting hers. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, stripped of its hostility. "I don't know if you remember me from yesterday," he said. "I wasn't fair to you." Elena didn't reply immediately. She waited, giving him space to continue. He swallowed hard and looked away before trying again. I got terrible news that morning. Something about my sister. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. I'm sorry. The last word seemed heavy in his mouth, as if it cost him something to release it. She expected to feel satisfaction, vindication, or the sense of being right. But none of that came. Instead, she felt only compassion, unexpected, undeserved, undeniable. She saw the exhaustion in his posture, the struggle behind his apology. Yesterday's anger was now just the ghost of someone overwhelmed by life. It's okay, she said gently. We all go through moments that break us. She surprised herself with how much she meant it. The man's eyes softened slightly, relief flooding his face. He nodded, seeming both grateful and embarrassed. After a quiet moment, he said, "Thank you for not making me feel worse." Then he turned to leave, but paused before stepping away. I hope your day is better than yesterday. When he was gone, Elena remained still, letting the moment settle into her heart. Mercy, she realized, had circled back to her in a way she didn't expect. She had shown compassion to someone who had wounded her, and now he had offered a small, fragile piece in return. Later, during her lunch break, she sat alone near the back entrance of the clinic, letting the sunlight warm her face. She thought about how intertwined the day's events had been: a frightened father, a hurting child, an apologetic man, her brother fighting his own demons. Every person she had encountered carried something heavy, and yet each had responded in a different way: fear, guilt, anger, vulnerability. It struck her that showing mercy wasn't about fixing people or excusing behavior. It was about seeing them, truly seeing them. Her thoughts drifted to Matteo again. She had promised him she would help him through the next steps, calling their mother, arranging meetings, setting a plan to rebuild. It wouldn't be simple, but after everything she witnessed at the clinic, she felt certain that mercy had to be lived in action, not only felt in emotion. She would walk beside him, not because he was easy to love, but because love required choosing to stay even when the road was difficult. As the afternoon continued, Elena returned to work with a steadier spirit. Each patient, each co-worker, each hurried moment became an opportunity to practice what she had learned. She found herself speaking more gently, listening more intently, and feeling more deeply for the struggles around her. Mercy had softened her in a way that made her stronger, not weaker. By the time her shift ended, she was tired, but it was a different kind of fatigue, a meaningful one, the kind that came from giving her heart without losing it. As she packed her things, Olivia approached her with a smile and handed her a small pastry bag. "Someone dropped this off for you earlier," she said. Inside was a cinnamon roll with a note, "For yesterday. Thank you for your patience." It was unsigned, but she knew instantly who it was from. She let out a soft laugh, touched by the unexpected gesture. Mercy, she thought, had a way of returning like a boomerang, not always quickly, not always neatly, but inevitably in one form or another. As Elena walked toward her car, the sky was streaked with fading colors of dusk, and she breathed deeply, grateful for everything the day had taught her. She realized then that showing mercy wasn't only about healing others, it was healing her too, reshaping her into someone who could carry light even into the most difficult places. Night had already settled over the city by the time Elena arrived home, painting the streets in soft shadows and warm lamplight. She stepped inside her apartment quietly, as if not to disturb the calm that had followed her from the clinic. The air smelled faintly of chamomile tea from the night before, and the soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound echoing through her small living room. She set her bag down, removed her coat, and took a slow breath, allowing the tension of the day to loosen its grip on her shoulders. Her phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Matteo. "Can I come over?" She typed back immediately. "Yes, anytime." She prepared 2 cups of tea and waited by the window, watching cars roll by quietly below. When the doorbell rang, she opened it to find her brother standing there, his hair messy, his clothes wrinkled, but his eyes clearer than she had seen in a long while. There was still tiredness in them. Yes, but it was a softer kind, the result of effort rather than despair. He stepped inside, and for a moment, they simply stood there in silence. Then Matteo spoke with a shaky exhale. "I talked to Mom," he said, "and I'm trying to get an appointment with the counselor you mentioned." It was a simple sentence, but to Elena, it felt like a miracle whispered into the open air. "That's good," she said, unable to hide her relief. "I'm proud of you." Matteo sat at the table and wrapped his hands around the warm teacup she'd placed in front of him. "I didn't know where to start," he admitted. "But last night, something broke in me. I've been angry for so long, I forgot how it felt to actually want to get better." He paused, glancing toward her. "Thank you for not giving up on me." She sat across from him, her throat tight with emotion. "You're my brother," she said softly. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying." They spoke for a long time, about his fears, about their mother, about the guilt he carried like an invisible chain around his chest. The more he spoke, the more Elena could see how deeply he had buried his own pain, hiding it beneath sarcasm, distractions, and quiet withdrawals. She realized then that mercy toward him wasn't just about forgiving, it was about giving him a place where he didn't have to prove himself to be worthy of love. As their conversation stretched late into the evening, the room grew dimmer, lit only by a single lamp beside the window. Matteo leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face with both hands. "Do you ever wonder," he began hesitantly, "why some people get away with hurting others? Why mercy feels like letting them off the hook?" Elena thought of the man who had yelled at her, of the frightened father in the clinic, of all the people who carried storms beneath their skin. She thought of her own moments of fault, times when she had snapped or withdrawn or failed to show kindness. "I don't think mercy means pretending something didn't happen," she said. "I think it means choosing not to let bitterness make you someone you're not." Matteo nodded slowly, as if tasting those words, letting them settle inside him. "I'm not used to being shown mercy," he said quietly, "so I don't always know how to give it." "That's okay," she whispered. "You're learning now." Later, after he left with a promise to call her the next morning, Elena stood by the window again, holding her empty teacup. The street lights flickered faintly, casting gentle halos across the pavement. She could see her breath on the cold glass as she leaned closer, the city outside sitting in its quiet nighttime rhythm. She felt a stillness inside her, not the absence of burdens, but the presence of grace. She thought back over the past 2 days. They had begun with frustration, tension, and exhaustion, but they had unfolded into something she never expected. Apologies, healing conversations, soft places for broken hearts to rest. She had witnessed pain in its many forms, anger, fear, regret, and she had learned that mercy did not erase any of it. Instead, mercy created space for the broken to breathe. It softened what judgment would have hardened. It lifted what resentment would have crushed. She rinsed her cup, turned off the lights, and prepared for bed. But before climbing under the blankets, she knelt beside her bed and prayed, not out of habit, but out of gratitude. She prayed for Matteo, that his journey toward healing would continue with courage. She prayed for the father and his daughter at the clinic, for the man who had apologized to her, for every person who walked through life carrying storms unseen. And she prayed for herself too, that she would continue learning how to love in a way that looked like Christ's mercy, not the world's version of fairness. When she finally lay down, the room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the wall clock. Sleep came slowly but peacefully, and as she drifted, she felt something warm settle over her heart. An understanding that the day had given her more than tiredness. It had given her clarity. She had learned that mercy wasn't something you offered because others deserved it. Mercy was something you offered because you were once shown the same. The next morning arrived with pale sunlight stretching gently across her bed. Elena woke feeling renewed in a way she couldn't quite explain. The city outside was still waking up, but she already felt grounded, anchored in something steady. She brewed coffee and stood by the window once more, watching people hurry along the sidewalks, each carrying a life full of unseen stories. She wondered what the day would bring, the challenges, the unexpected encounters, the quiet moments where mercy would once again be asked of her. But instead of dreading it, she felt ready. Her heart was steadier now, shaped by the lessons she had walked through. As she grabbed her coat and prepared to leave for work, her phone buzzed. A message from Matteo lit up the screen. "Good morning. I made the appointment. Thank you again." She stared at the text with a smile, her chest warming. Mercy had planted a seed in him, one that was beginning to grow. She stepped outside, the crisp morning air greeting her with a quiet welcome. She walked down the street, past neighbors sweeping their porches, past shops opening their doors, past strangers who brushed by her with quick steps and hurried breaths. She found herself silently blessing each of them, sending small prayers into the space between her and the world. And as the sun continued rising, Elena realized something beautiful. Mercy didn't just change the people who received it, it changed the person who chose it. It softened the heart, sharpened the vision, and made room for peace to grow where bitterness once lived. It made her feel more alive. She walked into the day with a heart unburdened and a quiet resolve to continue living the kind of mercy that restores, heals, and transforms. A mercy that doesn't wait to be asked. A mercy that begins with one willing heart. A mercy that begins with hers. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, subscribe for more daily inspirations, and comment below with your thoughts or prayer intentions.